Welcome to Dr. A's Spiricast. So happy to have my next guest here, John D. Farmer, aka Johnny Cat or Johnny C, the creator of Utah Music Radio.
Hello.
Welcome, John.
Hi, Ann.
So glad to have you here.
Thank you. No, I'm really glad to be here. I actually was excited, kind of begged.
Did you?
I just remember I want to be the next one.
Well, I'm excited, and let me tell you why. So usually when people think of spirituality, the first thing that comes to their mind is religion, right? And so I'm really happy to have you here because we're going to be looking at spirituality through a humanistic lens, all right? So
yeah.
I am very excited about this because I want to discover how you're able to find your spiritual core without religion, and that's what the whole topic is going to be about for the day.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you want to start for everyone who doesn't know you by describing kind of who you are, where you're from, what your background is, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'm John Farmer, and I've been in the entertainment industry for 30 plus years. Started a radio station supporting local independent music in 2009 called Utah Music Radio. I really just got into film with you in the last 8 years. We found kind of a common bridge of bringing music and film together for independent filmmakers and musicians. So that was really awesome. Boy, there's just so much to me as a musician and an artist, and just somebody that is, I was raised caring about community, giving as much as you can to help support art and culture and everything like that. And I think Salt Lake City is a major hub that not a lot of people know about, but knowing once you've been in the art community, once you start meeting artists, you realize that there is a lot of levels to this community where the art scene is really thriving and the talent here is just incredible. So that's really kind of who I am. I love supporting the community and building whatever I can to help people.
So you're coming at life with a very empathetic lens where you really like helping people. You really like motivating people, as we've seen. What is your spiritual upbringing?
Well, I mean, spiritually, my mom was really into, she's a deacon at her church. So we went to church every Sunday growing up. I probably went to church until I was probably 16, 17 years old, I guess, maybe. And I did some things. I played drums for the church for once in a great while. It was a Presbyterian church, born and raised Presbyterian here in Utah. So that was always fun being the minority in the state. But yeah, so I grew up Presbyterian, and then I went to a Presbyterian college, Sheldon Jackson up in Alaska. And so that's kind of where it all began-ish.
In what way? What were your plans when you were going to Sheldon Jackson?
Well, I was, at one point I was really considering becoming a minister like my Uncle Dave. And that's about where I started seeing I started questioning things, as okay, so this time period doesn't really add up. These events don't really match with scientific theory and all of that. And so it opened my eyes. And so I had more questions, and I had more questions than what could be answered. So I just had to start kind of finding things on my own. And my dad's a scientist, and so he's a natural born skeptic. So I started picking up those kind of traits of questioning everything and kind of learning and studying and finding things that are, I'm not going to say factual because a lot of people take offense to that, but I mean, things that are scientific based. So I started following that pathway.
So you really started just loving the natural world and science and all of the things that you were learning about there.
Even when I was religious, I would tell people, I would say, how could you not believe in God when you're literally standing on a planet? Look at the trees, look at the air, look at the sky. Clearly something made this, right? And then I started doing more digging, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, well, the Big Bang and the universe and all the things that created the atoms and all of the things in the quarks and the neutrons and the protons and all of the little things that make up the universe is what made this planet, which is what made us. And when you start finding out how our composition, our body composition, which matches the same as the Earth's composition, and the Earth's composition, which is matched with how the sun is formed, and how the sun was formed was from the galaxy, and the galaxy was formed from, just this whole cycle, as above, so below sort of.
I was just going to say as above, so below. So the way that the human brain cell resembles a galaxy.
Oh, yeah. Your brain is literally, when you map the brain, looks just like the universe, because even the universe has filaments and our brain has filaments. So for us to be alive today, and we'll obviously get into it, I'm sure, but the fact that we are conscious beings, and there was a statement that blew my mind, was geology, which turned into biology. And that biology over a billion years, and I'm talking about even when Earth was just a molten core of just lava, all life formed from that. And we became from what this Earth is. And we're living conscious beings that recognize our surroundings. And that is something to be amazed by and praised by, that we are alive, being able to, you and I just having this conversation. It's a miracle. And it's not a miracle in a spiritual, there's a God sense. It's literally the fact that we evolved over billions of years to become these creatures, to have this conversation about our surroundings and to be able to understand our universe. That is outstanding. That is amazing to me.
I love that perspective. And this is a perfect segue right into this question. So if your definition of spirituality is not religious, how would you define spirituality?
Existence. Spirituality to me is just existing, being alive, being able to experience this life in this short little microscopic speck of time, being able to experience this moment, this now, is my spirituality.
It seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me that it's a lot to do with mindfulness and just thinking about the present and the fact that we're able to be here, right now.
Yeah. And to understand the immense amount of energy being utilized and used to create the now is incredible.
Okay.
We've had these conversations, we sit down late at night and I'm just like, the amount of energy it would take to make the now is infinite amount of power to be able to create the now. Because like right now we're having a conversation, but at the same time in this universe, there are stars exploding every second and there are gases that are creating planets as we speak right now. Somewhere in this vast universe, there are life forms forming somewhere in the 400 trillion other galaxies that are flying apart. And it's incredible. Just the energy being used in the now is so amazing.
Yeah, it's mind-blowing to think about, too. Just the fact that when you think about galaxies as numerous as grains of sand on a beach.
Oh, more.
Yeah, exactly. And they're just discovering more every day. So that in itself is just such a beautiful fact. Something to celebrate spiritually.
There's 400 billion stars just in our galaxy alone.
That's crazy. And in coming from you who falls asleep to Neil deGrasse Tyson every single night,
Brian
absolutely...
Cox, Brian Greene, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah, I just fall asleep to those guys every night.
So let me ask you this then, and this is kind of, it may be a little bit of a tough question, but do you feel like there is something beyond or a higher power or something other than the physical world?
Yeah, that is a tough question. So I think because, again, it goes to the as above, so below. And I think our energy, after we pass, the energy that is left, I think, and again, I don't want to say definitively yes or no. I know for a fact there isn't what the Bible or the Quran or any of these other thousands of religions out there right now are stating, a heaven and a hell and all of this. I don't believe in either one of those. I don't believe in hell. I don't believe in heaven. But I think once we pass, there's potentially a different dimension. I personally, this is my theory, is that our spirit is reabsorbed into the universe and that our conscious, the things that we have learned in this life are reabsorbed back into the universe to help future generations get epiphanies. So like, when you get that funnel and you're sitting there and you're like,
oh yeah, the funnel,
the epiphanies that come to us. I mean, it's like, look at the technology we have today, and so many people that come up with these ideas say it came to them in a dream, or this idea hit them, and it's all because their brains are like adding 2 plus 2. And also they're like, oh, what if I do this? And those ideas come over time or hit you, kind of like my radio station. I woke up in the middle of the night, I'm like, oh my God, I should start a radio station. And then I find out that there is like hundreds of other people that came up with the same idea around the same time. And it's sort of a good example of that would be pyramids. Pyramids started springing up all around the world, like in China.
At the same time. With a very similar design.
Yeah, with the similar design. So you have the Aztecs, you have the Chinese, you have the Egyptians, and they were all built around the same time. Now, how did they know from one another? Okay, let's take the scientific theory. They had boats. We don't think they had boats at the time, but we're learning now that there were boats, and maybe they crossed the seas, and maybe they were spreading their knowledge across these vast oceans. There was some kind of human race that was crossing the oceans that gave each community these ideas. We don't know. We don't have the evidence of that. But to think that the Chinese, the Aztecs, and the Egyptians all were building pyramids around the same time. They all had an epiphany approximately the same time. So where did that come from? People are going to be like, aliens.
Astronaut theorists
Ancient aliens.
suggest.
Yeah, just right up the head. But, those are the type of things that I'm talking about, that the evolution of man, the ideas that come to us all come from epiphanies, that all come from what I would consider the universe.
The energy that's reabsorbed when you pass
goes into, because if the universe looks like a brain and our brains look like the universe, I feel like we're taking that knowledge with us, if and or how it gets reabsorbed into the universe. That will help people down the road, you know what I mean? And eventually we all know that the universe will fitter out and spread out and all these things. But until then, I think that consciousness is still here.
Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious, and Madame Blavatsky called it the Akashic records. I think that's exactly what you're referring to.
Yeah, I mean, it could be something on those general. Yeah, sure.
It's like the ancient and eternal repository for knowledge from all of the different generations.
Yeah. Because, it's like I was trying to explain to our friend. I'm like, somebody had to come up with a table. Somebody was sitting there on a log, and then they were eating off a stone or something, and they're like, there's got to be something better. And so all of a sudden they're like, oh, look, flat rock, let's put sticks underneath it. Boom, they came up with a table. Then somebody else came up with an idea and said, hey, what if we fasten those sticks to this table so it doesn't tip over? And then someone's like, what if we drill holes? And then they start drilling holes. And then somebody had to coming up with a drill bit. Somebody had to come up with, and then all of a sudden you're cutting stones. And, so I mean, the progression and evolution of man to get to this point, it just takes time.
So going back to the question then, that there's something greater or something that's beyond, do you feel like that is energy?
I think it's the universe. The universe is the creator of everything. I don't think that the universe is anything other than this vast expansion that created everything that we see, which is the Big Bang. And here's another one for you. When the brain comes up with an idea, they found in MRIs that your brain sparks. There's a little spark in your head when you create an idea, right? And then your brain comes up and puts all these things together. Well, what if the universe was simply an idea and it recognized itself? And that spark was the creation of life. It's like, I think, therefore I am. And the universe was that moment.
Descartes, yeah.
And then it went, and there was that spark, which was the Big Bang, and life existed from itself.
That's beautiful. I love that.
So that's kind of my, that's my thinking.
Also, it reminds me of Midnight Mass. We highly recommend that series.
And again, an idea came from nothing. Remember that. An idea literally comes from nothing. It just comes, right? You get an idea, there's a spark in your mind, and then you create it. That something like creating a table literally came from nothing. So isn't that the concept of the universe and the Big Bang? Something from nothing. So an idea is, let's create life. And here we are.
So here's a question then. When people usually think of hope or faith even, they often think of religion, right? But coming from a more secular and humanistic or even atheist point of view, how do you define purpose and meaning and hope in your life?
Again, it just goes back to being alive. So having hope, that's part of the human experience. So if you lose hope, I think you become stagnant at that point. If you lose hope, then what's to move forward? What's to, so that again isn't so much, that's still just inside myself to just keep going.
How do you find meaning and purpose in your life?
Waking up every morning next to you, my kids, my family.
Aww.
That's literally that's what keeps me going. That's what gets me up. That's what gets me out of bed. And being here to support our community, to be active in this world, that's what gives me meaning, is being able to help others. That's really what keeps me going, is family, friends, and community.
So your sense of purpose, your spiritual core is people.
Yeah.
Helping people.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I love being able to support as much as I can people, to help them.
While you're here in this place at this time, because of all of that evolution. That's really beautiful. Yeah. Here's a question for you. So with this core, with this purpose and meaning that you're talking about, what are some common misconceptions that you encounter regarding humanism or atheism?
That I'm going to hell, that I need to be fixed, or that the misconception is that I'm evil, which is such a comedic. I can't understand that type of thinking, like people trying to save me when they're judging me, when the whole thing is you're not supposed to judge and just love everybody, but then you're told that you're going to hell and that you're evil, or all of these things. And I just sit there and I'm like, so what's the misconception? Is that I'm evil in some way, when all I'm here to do is live life and help and support people. So I don't understand that concept of not judging someone, but yet trying to change them. And it's just weird to me.
Yeah. Another one I encounter quite frequently is the fact that, a lot of people think that when you're a humanist or an atheist, that you believe in nothing, or that you're a nihilist. Or
yeah, I love that. They're like, you believe in nothing, and it's like, I don't believe in the gray-haired, bearded robe guy floating around and watching me as I'm living life.
Or, in the afterlife, you'll just become nothing and it's all darkness. But it sounds like what you're saying goes beyond that and goes more towards energy and
energy.
And
we're all energy.
The scientific view that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's recycled.
Yeah. That's why I want to be. And that's, and the other thing is part of evolution and all that. One of the things is when I die, I don't want to be pumped full of chemicals or anything to preserve my body. Bury me as fast as possible, naturally. Put me in a wood box that will deteriorate, and let my body renourish the planet that I took from. I ate the food. I ate and thrived and breathed and everything like that. And I'd rather my body be able to give back so that I can turn into grass, so I can feed those worms that aerate the ground, that helps the grass grow, which feeds the animals, which feeds more animals, which feeds more animals, which then, where I could, who's to say, be recycled back into something else in another million years. Who knows?
Right.
Who knows? If I come back as a blade of grass, then
all right, Walt Whitman.
I'm just saying, if I come back as a blade of grass, then I am still helping recycle.
Absolutely. So you're also leaving the least carbon footprint that you can when you pass. That's beautiful. Yeah. Another thing, too, that I feel when people are so attracted to religion and organized religion is that sense of community, is that sense of ritual and structure. As a humanist/atheist, or maybe even agnostic, are there any rituals that you do in your life and any communal practices that you do to fulfill that sense of structure?
I think the only thing that I really rituals that I kind of believe in is not even believe, but I mean, I support would be, the paganistic kind of sense of acknowledging that we are of this planet. That's really the closest thing I can get to doing anything that's semi-spiritual, is when we're just kind of praising Earth, if you will, and the elements and earth, wind, fire, water, and just saying thank you, showing gratitude to the planet that gave us life.
I know that with paganism, it's very earth-based as well.
Yeah, and that's the closest thing that I have to any kind of belief. But it's about the earth, because we all come from the earth.
Yeah, that's very true. Have you ever seen or experienced anything that you can't explain away with science?
Yeah, there's been some weird things that I've seen, but I always say that in the end, science will be able to figure it out. And I'll give you a great example of that. Let's watch Ghost Adventures, or what's the other one? Taps, or any of those other ghost shows, right?
Ghost Hunters.
Ghost Hunters.
Yeah, that's the Taps.
Yeah. Here's the thing about that. What's it take for them to be able to get their evidence? What do they use? Do they not use scientific instruments to be able to find ghosts, see ghosts, and all of that? At the end of the day, it still takes science to be able to, like the LiDAR with the laser lights and all that, and then they have their monitor, and then they see the little figure dancing around or whatever, and then they pick up all this, or they have their recorders.
That always freaks me out with the figures.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. But you've got the handheld recorders, the digital recorders. Well, what's that? That's not just something that a god put his finger or her finger in the mud and poof, there's a recorder. No, that is scientific equipment to find that ghostly or that, whatever thing. So science will eventually explain these things. It's not, are there things out there that I've seen? Yeah, give
me an example of things that you've seen that you can't easily explain away, or that are magical or miracles.
Here's one for you. It just happened this morning at our house.
Do tell.
Okay. So this morning, before I came in to do the radio show, I was walking down, I was letting the dogs outside. And those little glass ghost things, or whatever, the little alien looking things?
Yeah, I think they're from Spirited Away, actually. The little figures.
The little figures,
that
right?
Kate leaves around.
Yeah. Right. And you know how the head broke off of the one because it fell?
Yeah.
Okay, so try this one on for size. So I was in the kitchen this morning, and I was letting the dogs out, and all of a sudden, the head got thrown at me. I was going to tell you that off air, but we're here right now. So yeah, I was literally walking from the dining room to the door, and all of a sudden here's tick, 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 and it was thrown at me because it launched from wherever. I have no idea where it came from, but it was rolling at me at high velocity for going nowhere, and rolled in front of me. And there were no cats.
I was just going to say, was it perhaps a feline?
Nope. And I don't even know where it came from, but it was, I realized it came off a shelf, and everything else was sitting on the shelf, and it went foo, and it went about 3 or 4 feet off the thing, and then rolled past me pretty quickly. And I was like, and I'm looking around for it. I'm looking around, and I'm like, that's really weird. And looking for a cat, thinking a cat was swatting like Pyrrha or something. Nothing.
Could it have been Vincent, that one that lives on that floor?
So that's...
We name our ghosts at our place because it's a quirky manor.
Yeah, so that is a weird experience. So I've seen that kind of stuff. Eastel.
Our first home.
I woke up really early in the morning. Oh, well, hell, we've got a witness from that. Anna was staying the night, and the kitchen light kept turning on and off, and hearing steps going up and down the stairs. I've stood at the top of those same stairs, and it sounded like someone was literally falling down the stairs, and there was nothing there. But it was like all the way down the stairs, and I'm just looking at it like, what the hell?
Yeah, my friend left twice at 3 and 4 a.m. to drive back to Idaho because our house was so active during the night.
Yeah, and then there was the time when I woke up early in the morning, getting the kids ready for school, sitting there watching the news, and all of a sudden I hear what sounds like all of my amps and my speakers in the garage fell and hit my car. And I was just freaking out. I was like, oh my God. So I go downstairs, open the garage door, everything's there. And it was loud. It was loud, thundering, loud crash from the garage. And I thought my car was destroyed. So I was like, okay, I go back upstairs. I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, if you're going to do it again, let's see you do it again. I'm like kind of taunting. He's like, oh, let's see what you got. And then all of a sudden, oh, bam, a loud slam again, like somebody had slammed the door, like somebody hit the door. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to screw with you. And then there was the other time when we had the bus in the backyard.
Oh, yeah. This was during COVID when we had the bus parked in the backyard and we were having a fun little camping night in it.
Yeah.
And you
were there, obviously. So between the two of us, we can confirm this. It's not like, we were both laying in the bus. We were sleeping in it like we were doing a camp out in the bus.
We were still awake. We were just kind of settling in.
Slowly starting to fade off, and then all of a sudden it sounded like
a sonic boom is the only way that I can describe it. It was like, ooh, boom.
Yeah.
And like something hit the bus from below, like underground, and like rocked it.
Yeah, it hit so hard.
It felt like a moose or something running into the bus, but like more from the earth below. It was very bizarre.
It was right after the big earthquakes.
Yeah.
But what was weird is that it wasn't an earthquake because it only affected the bus.
And I was like, John, and he's like, maybe the door fell off the bus. So he goes out and he looks, and the door was just fine.
Well, what happened is it was the sliding door, because it's a VW bus, so it had the sliding door, and it hit so hard it actually popped the door off the hinge. Not hinge, but it popped it open as if it was not latched all the way. It hit so hard that it was like a moose or a bus.
Sonic boom, but it was more like a tangible creature like came slamming into the bus, and it rocked back and forth.
It rocked the bus, it popped the door open.
Can't explain that at all. That house was very active.
Yeah, it was really active. And so have I seen some weird things? Yeah, I'm sure everybody on this earth has a story of some kind that they've, experienced something that they can't explain. But again, I think eventually these are all things that science will be able to explain.
Right.
Even if it is an afterlife, but it's going to take science to be able to discover that afterlife.
Or maybe it goes back to what you were saying at the very beginning of the episode about dimensions and multi-dimensions and things like that. Well,
we've just found with Willow, the Google computer, that it is potentially connecting to multiverses, which is so incredible. That is such a fascinating thing. But yeah, do I believe in multi-dimensions? Yeah. Brian Cox said it best. He said, if the universe is infinite, then there are an infinite possibilities of existence, which means that there are multiple infinite universes out there. Because if there is no end, then we have the potential of creating anything we want, which means that we can create our existence. And so in this life right now, we're having this conversation, but in another universe, we're not having this conversation. Its roles are reversed. You're sitting here and I'm sitting there. There's other ones where we don't exist at all. And I feel like every little decision that we make in this world, be it, and I've challenged myself to this, I'll go down 7th East and I'll be like, well, do I take a right or a left? And I'm like, well, let's make a left this time and see where that takes me. That might skew my time off by just a few minutes to get home. But what happens in that meantime? And that's kind of like where accidents happen, And if you think about how accidents happen, this one person who's driving down the road at 70 miles an hour, but they were running a little late, so they were that fraction of a second behind schedule. And then you got this other person who's right on time, and they're just cruising along at 30 miles an hour, but their time frames intersect with one another. And if that one person that wouldn't have been late and wasn't driving 70 miles an hour, let's just say they were doing 65 miles an hour and they were driving 5 miles, that's just enough time that other person doing 30 miles an hour would have avoided that crash completely. But because of these little intersections in life, those little split seconds that we take,
that lead us here.
That all lead us here. And so when you see these accidents, you go, man, what led to that moment where those two cars collided? And you talk to these people and they're like, I was just minding my own business when all of a sudden, or this other person like, I was running late. Or this guy's like, man, if I would have gone through that stoplight, I would have been hit. And that's actually happened to me a couple of times where I've literally avoided car crashes that I was just in front of, and cars crashed right behind me. And I've seen another car that was pulling out in the intersection, and this guy ran a red light and got T-boned right in front of me. And I'm like, man, I'm literally one. And then I start thinking back throughout my day going, man, if I would have just left 5 seconds earlier, that would have been me in front of that car. And I could have pulled out and got hit. So it's just little micro ticks throughout life that equal to all of these experiences that we have.
That's really interesting.
And that goes back to the infinite amount of energy that we deal with on every second of our day.
And the power that it takes to bring you into that.
And that goes into
that moment.
Into the multidimensional.
Yeah.
Because I could make a left, I could make a right. I could have made a right and got into a car accident. I made a left, which got me home at this time, where I could have made a right and seen something different. And that's what I love about life. That's what I love about this experience, is that I can make these decisions and experience something different every single time.
Thank you. Yeah. I love that. I have one more question before we find out where we can find you and everything like that.
I'm right here.
Are you ready for this?
Oh boy.
So oftentimes in religion, there's an anchor in terms of morality, in terms of choosing right versus wrong. As a humanist / atheist, how do you as a person and an individual decide what is right or wrong?
I mean, it's all... What is right or wrong? Right or wrong is kind of a social norm, construct. There are some cultures out there that right is cannibalism, but that's their community. I think for what's right or wrong is just being a good person. I mean, one of my arguments is when it comes to religion, when you're talking about, tell me what's human about war, killing another human being. It doesn't make any sense, or demoralizing or dehumanizing another culture simply because you believe differently. I don't care what faith or belief or any of that you think you have, and trying to demonize another human. What makes it right or wrong is, I don't care what you believe. Be nice to one another. Be a human being. Consider yourself lucky to be alive in this time. Be lucky that you're able to feel the feelings you feel. Don't take it for granted, and just love one another. You don't have wars over atheism. You don't have, my belief in atheism started wars. There's no basis behind that to start a war because my atheism is better than your atheism. It doesn't work like that. My humanism is better than your humanism, so therefore I'm going to go to war over that. You don't have that. And that's the thing. That's what makes things right or wrong, is not fighting over the most pettiest things in this world. I never understood that. You're here to live, and you have to find purpose within yourself and what your meaning is. So if you think it's religion, well, that's great, but you don't have to
hurt others
to push your agenda or your feelings onto others. Be grateful that you're here to experience this life, and you don't have to shove it down other people's throats. You don't have to tell somebody, whoa, you're going to go here because you don't believe it this way, or you're going to die because, or or I'm going to coax you into blowing yourself up because that's what this particular religion believes, or even the damn Crusades and the Inquisition and all of these other. Every religion has always started some kind of flailing war or agenda to push upon another person. Just believe what you want to believe, but be a good person. You don't need to have religion to be a good person. You don't have to have religion to be a good person. You can just be a good person. If you need a religion to be a good person, then you're probably not in it for the right reasons. And you got to remember that. Be a good person just to be a good person. Don't force yourself on others.
Thank you. And I think that sums up humanism to a T, being a kind person.
Just love one another.
Giving to others, motivating others, helping others. And you do that wonderfully, John, by the way.
I try. I know. I got that Italian blood. That's one thing that I still to this day, I try desperately to be kinder and gentler and not be so emotionally driven. And that again goes back to
hot-blooded Italianness.
But yeah, so just love one another.
I love it. And, even the movie we made, Ride of the Shaman, that whole thing is humanistic and underpinned by kindness and love. So
yeah,
absolutely. I love it. Well, you're amazing. Thank you so much for humoring me with this podcast. And again, this is a Utah Music Radio original podcast. So keep your eyes on more to come. There are going to be different podcasts coming down the pike. So John, where can we find you? How can we follow you? Tell me all the things.
So you can find me right here on the radio.
Utah Music Radio.
UtahMusicRadio.com. Yeah, I'm here live 10 to hopefully later, 10 a.m. till 11 a.m. right now on UtahMusicRadio.com. You can find me on Utah Music Radio on Facebook and at Utah Music Radio on Instagram. Yeah, I just, and then the Cat's Den. I've got my own podcast here.
Who do you have coming up on your show?
I've got Stephen Wells coming up tomorrow, and then I've got Matt Cole and Jason Ruffoni, thank you. I said his name all day today.
J Ruff, as he goes
J Ruff
by
on
Facebook.
Socials. Yep, he'll be on Tuesday morning. And then there's a couple other people but that's...
And who have you had recently?
Oh, we just had Johnny Lightfoot on last week, and we had Bill Frost. So Johnny Lightfoot is the bass player for Air Supply for, I think, 14 years, I believe. And then Bill Frost, who's on X96 on Mondays at 8 a.m. He was the editor for the City Weekly as well. So.
Oh, yeah. I remember reading, I would always start from the back of those City Weeklies and go forward so I could get my movie reviews first.
Right. Yeah.
And my music recommends. So that's awesome.
So we've got a lot of great people coming in. Probably Trace Wyron. We're working with getting her in from My Sister Jane and Blanche and a couple other bands that she's in. Oh, we had Alex Boynton. That was in one of my first. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much again.
Yeah, you can find me on IMDb too.
That's right. And
Google my name, John D.
You can find both of us also at zepstonemedia.com. You can learn about the arts festival that we're putting on, talking about supporting, musicians and artists and filmmakers and poets and podcasters. That's really our goal. So it goes back to that humanism, John. Keep it up, okay?
Yeah, and don't forget about our gala.
I know.
Huge gala coming up.
Yep. And if you ever want to support the radio station or the festival and what we're doing, just give us a holler.
Yep.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you.